I'm Jeremy Taylor, the Brit on the radio in your lugholes. And with me, my old friend Eric, my producer. He's going to be with us tonight. It's coming especially to join us.
Hello.
Let me gently introduce, in an amusing application of elusive alliteration, used with the poignant, pungent perspicacity of a thrilling threnody of rapturous, rippling rumbustousness. Our panel for tonight. Oh, yes, well, Dr. Orlando has actually joined the panel tonight.
Hello there, children.
Delayed gratification.
Dame Kathleen is with us.
Hello.
Mr. Fernando, our technical advisor, has got so fed up with sitting in the wings, he's decided he's going to come and actually sit with us and drink his beer and make comments. Very
Hello.
technical. Hello.
Oh, sorry.
No,
That's
that's great. That was brilliant. Young Coach Tyler is with us again. Hello,
Yes,
Coach.
yes. Hello, hello.
And as I say, Eric, the producer, is on the panel. We got some interesting stuff tonight. We thought, let's go a little political, bit more than we normally do, know what I mean? But as a Brit, and you all remember your history, okay, there's no record of the Brits or the Scots complaining when Hadrian built his wall. So, yes, why is having a wall such a bad thing? For example, if President Obama or the late President Bartlett had said his government wanted to build a comprehensive barricade on the border, would there have been such a hue and cry? Was it really about not giving Trump what he wants? And maybe it's time for some in the country to grow up. Let's start with Dr. Orlando,
Why you want to start with me?
because Kathleen is busting stuff.
Actually, I just want to say that you said there was no record of public outcry against Hadrian building his wall. Can you just imagine what the newspaper headlines would have been had such things existed? You know, idiot Hadrian, thinking that a couple of stones are going to keep people out of the country.
You know what? The other side is, like, it could have been a pro-Hadrian newspaper that talked about keeping out all the barbarians and how the wall was like the greatest thing ever. So that's like this. It's so weird that we make this comparison.
They would have been trying to raise, he would have demanded at least £3.
Well, the issue, of course, is that the barbarians couldn't read, right?
Right.
No, I mean, they didn't have radios or TV to watch. The barbarians didn't, and Hadrian spoke Italian. So oddly surprising that the Brits didn't know what was going on.
So, no, but to your point, Kath, it's this weird thing where, like, we look at the historical record that's written by a certain group of people with a certain agenda, and we make these assumptions about what it must have been like. I can pretty damn well guarantee there were people that were pissed off about Hadrian's Wall. Like, just like there are people that are going to be pissed off about our wall. So I don't know for sure that the comparison holds up. I personally think that the wall is more the fight against the wall is more about the utility of the wall, or more accurately, the futility of the wall, than it is about Trump.
Amazing what a difference an F will make.
Yeah. There he is, the man of the hour, the tower of power. Too sweet to be sour. Made of solid
Evo is
steel
here.
and sex
Stop for
appeal.
a second.
Mr. One, Evo,
It's
Ivanov.
the Evo.
Evo.
Evo!
Hello.
Missed you guys.
Missed you too.
New Zealand crew.
Yes.
Pull up a chair.
Pull up a chair. And of course, there's an interesting thing coming on as well, which I want our listeners to listen to. They say that we talked about Hadrian, and we're going to talk about the wall and all that in a minute. But there is another wall. And this wall, you'll hear it first here on this podcast on Wednesday Night Undressed. There is another wall. And there is going to be it's going to happen, and people are going to die because of it.
You're not talking about that bathroom wall we wanted to replace.
No, I'm being serious. There is another wall, and people
I'm
are
just
going
curious if he's saying wall or wool.
to... No, wall. Wall, you freaking heathen.
He went to New Zealand for like a month and acquired the accent.
Apparently so.
So there is another wall, and we'll get to that in a minute. So, Kathleen, I put it to you that this is really about not giving Trump what he wants, and it's time for the country to grow up.
Speaking of growing up, Does anybody here think that applies to anybody more than telling Trump to grow up? He's just throwing a tantrum. He's a baby.
So do you really think he's throwing a tantrum, or do you think that there's a higher reason for this?
No, he's throwing a tantrum because he recognizes that he only has a small part of the country. Even his so-called base is shrinking. And he knows that if he doesn't point to something that he's done
Or trying to do,
then he has to project a strength. That's all he's about. And he doesn't realize that strength actually involves more than just being a crybaby.
So this doesn't have anything, and I'm genuinely asking because I consider this all the time. This isn't some part of some larger plan to delay what's going on in the FBI right now or anything like that.
It's all a great distraction. And of course the wall, supposed, even if it worked on keeping people off the southern border, isn't going to protect us from Russia, which is, a way bigger threat. So yeah, it's distraction, it's temper tantrum, it's trying to feed his guerrilla base, his blood-sucking people. That's what it is.
Count Ivanov.
Yeah, it's a very nice topic. Congratulations. I'm sure somebody else came up with it. But nevertheless, it's a great topic.
Well, welcome back, you bastard.
I understand the fixation with the physical barrier. I mean, it's called a physical barrier. That's self-explanatory, right? But I watched an HBO documentary recently which proved that the walls are extremely inefficient. In that documentary, in about 3 minutes, one single zombie ice dragon annihilated a 100-foot giant wall. It took no time. This proves that one organic unit, one low-tech creature can just annihilate the entire wall.
Granddaughter of Godzilla.
That wall was 800 feet.
800 feet was obliterated by one single ice zombie dragon. Come on.
I think.
No.
Look, hang on a minute. Now we've got to have a bit of technical stuff here from Dr. Orlando. Well, what do you technically, Fernando? Sorry. What do you think about the technical side?
Did you just
of the
confuse the two brown-skinned people on the podcast? Holy fuck!
I'm on my second beer. I mean, what I get.
Well, I think it's a very shameful and even makes worse the conditions like to stop, paying, keep the
federal
federal,
workers,
the federal and high risk of security. Usually, people freak out of war on drugs, where the drugs really comes in mass scale from the coast. Coast Guard is not being paid.
Can you imagine how many illegal drugs and criminals and so on have flowed into this country since the shutdown? Way more than any wall is going to stop.
Yes.
I'm amused on so many levels. First of all, that the promise was for the wall to be paid by Mexico, right? Yep. That was the big thing. That was his big pitch. It was all about semantics and charming the far right voter. And I am amused by the guy's sexuality because. He's constantly, if you listen carefully to everything he says, it's always the big, beautiful, tall,
big
throbbing
Mac.
wall.
Big Mac.
It's well, okay, he didn't say throbbing.
They want it
but
erected
he's so
in his
close. Yeah, it has to be erected. It has to be long, hard, thick, big.
Yeah.
I bet he would stroke it if he was next to it.
Yeah. Remember when he spoke of the big, fat, fantastic, beautiful text cut? It's always the same adjectives that are, very, very, very homoerotic. And so I feel like he's very insecure in his own sexuality. By the way, the wall, guys, it's been proven that walls, like you mentioned Hadrian's Wall, right? I mean, the big wall of China, those walls were designed for military purposes, right? To stop the hordes of invaders. They were not designed for immigration and for illegal drugs. They were designed to stop an advancing army. They didn't work. even those amazing structures for its time where there was no drones, there was no equipment, there was no
cameras.
tunneling, they didn't work. Now, by the way, the wall, it's a joke. Have you seen the fucking tunnels that they dig underneath?
Yep.
There's a tunnel that's 50 miles long with railroad lights, roadside attractions like French bistros. They probably have clowns and artists, and they probably have even those people that pretend to be statues.
There's a McDonald's.
So
There's a
it's an
McDonald's
annoying
in one of
tunnel, is
them.
what you're saying.
It's a New York City street tunnel.
And also, sorry, like I got a little off, but I mean, correct me on a history aspect of this. When did we start having a wall here? As far as I know, Truman maybe was the starter, or there was even pre-Truman. But I remember that part of the materials that they used to construct the wall was post Second World War. That was scrap material from the camps with the Japanese. And then there was waves with Carter, Clinton, and probably more than that. But it's kind of weird, like this be a subject. I mean, we have poverty, we have inequality, we have all sorts of craziness, and now we just keep like seeing 24/7 stupid news about like a stupid guy have a tantrum about this whatever $1 billion wall.
It's Ann Coulter and Rush Limbaugh, right?
Coach Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here in America, our government has two very, very strong weapons. And I don't see why we need a wall when we protect our schools and children with the same thing. And I am talking about thoughts and prayers. Why build a wall? Why build a wall when
you
we
have
can
thoughts
just
and
prayers.
send thoughts and prayers?
Amen.
You
Yeah,
know?
to the border.
Exactly.
Also, I am very, very humored by the offer that was just offered to the Democrats about the wall that involves the wall.
Yeah.
Can I demonstrate the offer that Trump gave the Democrats?
Please.
I just
Okay.
came up with it. Okay, so Jeremy here for our listener is having a beer and some French fries. Here's the offer that Trump made the Democrats. Took the
Hey.
beer. I'm taking the beer right now. I took Jeremy's beer, and here's the offer. Jeremy, if you give me half of your French fries, I will give you this beer.
Oh, my beer back.
This is literally, think about it. This is literally the DACA recipient who actually had roads to citizenship, full protection. They was taken away, and he's offering that for 3 years in exchange for a fucking wall. This is absolutely ridiculous. Also, let's talk about this is what Fernando said. The reasons nobody is looking for the reasons for this migration from Central America. Well, the reasons are poverty that is partially created by us, that we are responsible for. Poverty, crime, lawlessness that we are responsible for. So the wall is a very good way of doing nothing while pretending that you're doing something. It doesn't solve any kind of problems. It creates more problems. It creates alienation. It creates hatred. There's going to be tunnels. There's going to be ways to breach the wall. So it's really silly.
So can
You go on then.
Can I posit the idea that the alienation and the hatred are not problems, but they are features? Like,
Right.
I think if you look at it as the folks that want the wall, the fact that we make people feel like they don't belong here is part of the point. So that's not a problem for the proponents of the wall. So I don't know that if outside of this table or a group of people that have the same mindset, that would be a convincing argument to say we don't want that, because that's exactly what they want.
Can I point out, it would be disingenuous not to point out to walls that actually work. For example, in Israel, the wall mostly works. In Bulgaria, we built 100 miles of barbed wire fencing between Turkey and Bulgaria to stop immigration from the Middle East. And that worked. I mean, people cannot breach that thing. And I just feel like here we have a situation, we have 2,000 miles of, that we want to build 2,000 miles of wall. That would be the equivalent of, like if we were building it in Europe, to build it from Bulgaria to Iceland. That is how long wall we have to build. That's 2,000 miles. So, for some countries, in some situations, it just doesn't work. Also, we don't have a mass migration from a country, Middle Eastern country, where there's warfare. We have somewhat controlled immigration. The people in those caravans, they come here and try to enter legally. The illegal aliens that enter, that number is minuscule. So we just don't have the same geographic challenges. We don't have the same geopolitical challenges, and so I don't think that's a reasonable.
Dr. Orlando.
I want to get back to Jeremy's original question, though. Like, isn't at least part of this just an anti-Trump pushback? Mm-hmm. Like, there's got to be some component of this wall.
Yeah.
That's got to do with, like, we just don't want to give Trump what he wants.
The reason, I think, one of the things that we like doing with this podcast is to try and get people to, instead of foam at the mouth, is to think about what if you were the president? What would you do?
Dude, I just come here for the beer.
Yeah. And so, for example, let's say they built a 100-foot high above ground wall and a 100-foot wall below ground with every sensor man has ever come across, right? And even a rabbit wouldn't be able to get through.
Of course,
just
nobody
say,
think of building
So
a
we're just going to
101-foot
like,
ladder.
throw out reality
humor me for a minute.
and assume that we had enough concrete in the world to build
What's
such
going
a
to
thing.
happen is that there will have to be camps somewhere for the people who are coming up, who want to come into the country legitimately, but are seeking asylum, right? So you're going to end up with what we would call concentration camps. Who pays for those concentration camps? Is where I'm going with this. And
Evo, there was a documentary on HBO about this, wasn't there? It was like about a 13th precinct, maybe?
Yes, that was a great doc.
And then there's another thing I said at the beginning of it, to get people thinking, and this is, you'll hear this first, here, is that we keep hearing about what President Trump's doing and all that sort of thing, and then they switch to what's going on in the UK because people are laughing and joking about Brexit. One of the interesting things about Brexit is that Brexit isn't working. The Prime Minister can't make it work because of Northern Ireland. You've got to remember that Northern Ireland is the northern part of an island with an S.
I didn't remember that, but go ahead.
And the 7 counties are part of the UK, not part of the state of Ireland. If they build, if they have a hard Brexit, they are going to put a fence up. This fence will be 30 feet high. It will have watchtowers. It'll be electrified, and there'll be soldiers, professional soldiers, on top of it with machine guns.
Will it be a big, beautiful, throbbing wall?
Yeah, people are going to die. They have already had bombs going off in Belfast because the one outfit is thinking, right, okay, they're now going to build a wall, and so if you want to see real bloodshed, you saw it with the Berlin Wall coming down. And before the Berlin Wall, remember the James Bond movies, getting people across the wall and people running for it and being shot by the guards? This isn't what Trump is thinking. It's not what he's talking about. There are going to be real border issues. And
Again, you're
I'm
saying
interested
that as though it's not a feature for the folks that want it. Like, that's kind of the problem. I think that, like, we understand that this is a bad thing. But for the folks that want the wall, you're describing exactly what they want to see.
Right. And the issue we've got, isn't it, it seems to me, is that if they were in the majority, remember they won the election. We don't like it.
No, they stole the
the
election.
Liberal, whatever. But they won it. Right? If they had won it with even bigger majority, so that if we call it the Democrats or the Liberals were, 15% of the country, and 80%, 85% said, no, we want a wall. We want a proper, big, beautiful wall.
Throbbing.
Throbbing.
The problem with this is not his promise. His promise was that we are not going to be paying for the wall. that somebody else is going to pay for the wall. That was his promise. He's not holding, whether he builds the wall or not, it's not going to be his promise. So, I understand that he's trying to build a monument to himself, and the whole petulance comes into play as well. Of course, part of it is people not wanting to give him what he wants. Of course it is. Of course. They offered him $20 billion for the wall. Remember that? They offered him $20 billion. The Democrats
said yes
did.
then.
He should have said yes then and given protection to the DACA recipients. Instead, he said, oh no, I want it all. I want the wall. I want the DACA people to go away. I want it all. Well,
And
it doesn't work that
they know darn well that if the Democrats or whoever agreed to build all the wall he wanted, he would then back out on anything he had promised for that. There is no deal making with this guy. He's a total liar, and he will not keep any promise.
Yeah, you know how stupid the wall is? Have you seen the guy with the lawn chair and a bunch of balloons? You can build a fucking wall 300 feet underground and 300 feet up. All you need is a lawn chair and 20 or 1,000 balloons. And you'll be over that wall in no time, sipping on daiquiri.
Yeah.
We have troops dying in Syria. We have troops dying in Afghanistan and other places. Why don't we bring the tens of thousands of troops that we have abroad home and have them patrol the border? And there are certain areas they don't have to patrol because no one can. It's physically impossible to get over.
Because
Why don't we just bring the troops home? And if it's 3,000 miles, right? You have 1 soldier per mile. Well, we can do that easy. 10 soldiers per mile, we can do that easy. What about 100 soldiers a mile? We can just about do that and still keep a separate military. What I'm getting at is there are practical solutions to border security, right? It's just we don't really want to talk about it. Dr. Fernando.
I'm not sure that just because a thing is possible makes it practical. Like what you've described is a way to have a border wall that would fulfill Trump's promise. I haven't heard, A, that there is a problem that requires a wall, and B, that the wall will fix it. Does that register?
Yeah, I mean, why should we all have our taxes raised and our foreign interests denied and everything else, and lose all our soldiers from overseas, whatever, just to make
a petulant child
feel hard?
So, first of all, I just had a brilliant idea. I think it's brilliant. Donald Trump offered the Democrats. He said, "Okay, you give me the $5 billion for the wall. I'll give protection to the DACA recipients for 3 years. There'll be legislative protection for 3 years." Perfect answer for the Democrats. They missed a great opportunity for a great zinger. They'll say, "Absolutely, we'll give you the $5 billion, but we want $2 billion of those dollars to be used for removal of the wall after 3 years." I hate walls. I don't know how you feel about it. Those separating lines, those separators, I know they're supposed to protect us from evil people, but generally, the movement of humanity should be removing of all borders and all walls. In 1,000 years, we're not going to have borders. When you fly with an airplane over this beautiful earth, you don't see borders. We created them. We need to remove borders. The only wall that I like is Pink Floyd's The Wall. That's the only wall that I've ever liked in my life.
Ivo, my friend, it sounds suspiciously like you are in favor of an open office concept, and I just can't go along with that, no matter what you say.
By the way, speaking of open office concept, did you hear the craziest idea so far? In Arizona, they proposed the legislation in Arizona. Did you hear about that?
No.
You kidding me?
No, haven't.
All right, Arizona is on the verge of deciding to impose on every manufacturer of computer hardware to embed software in every device. We're talking phones, iPads, laptops, every device that blocks porn.
What?
And everybody needs to pay.
Whoa,
wait, listen.
Not my point.
Listen, listen.
Everybody just started listening.
Listen, this is very important.
Come on, Trump would never sign that.
Listen, no, he might. It's up to Arizona. So here's the deal. block porn,
Because he couldn't go into
then,
Arizona anymore.
Then everybody buying a device is required to pay $20
To release?
for this software to be removed so they can download porn. The $20 goes towards building the wall in Arizona, on the border with Arizona. And this is all over the news. Read it. There's a movement in several other states to do this as well.
Holy
So,
crap, like,
Brilliant.
wait,
I love this. This is like maybe the best idea ever.
but then you know they also
Is this
once
all
you
porn
unblock
sites?
it, yeah,
All porn sites.
all porn, every porn. But then the question is what qualifies as porn? This is going to be open to interpretation. Then the other question
Anything
is
that has Trump in it.
what about tracking the people that have unlocked? You know, it's just so many First Amendment issues here that it's just mind-boggling. You know,
Kind of goes back to net
Premise is
neutrality as well.
great, though.
Hang on, Coach.
Oh no, I was just saying that falls along the lines of the whole net neutrality thing, where I mean, if we had that removed, we'd have to pay for all these different sort of things, you know, to and
I can't wait for them to call this the Great Porn Wall, and then you know if they build it out of concrete, Banksy is gonna be the first one to start doing porn murals.
and then shred
I
it.
love the idea that they say, you know what,
Wall.
you've got too much freedom. We're going to take your freedom and,
And
we're going
we
to
build
make
a
you
wall.
pay for taking some more of your freedom.
Yup.
This is brilliant.
This
Let's
is
move
America.
on. Let's
we
move
can't
on to
move
the,
on from
to
that.
the second question of the
Triple tax the
evening.
Bible says, you know, each Bible you pay triple, and I don't know. I'm sorry, it's just
It's all right. It was something technical, and
muttering,
no
muttering.
one understood. The far right have demonised job protections for years. Is this why the president, his government, and supporters don't care how long the current shutdown lasts? Are the 800,000 furloughed federal workers and their hundreds of thousands of non-federal support colleagues proving his point, i.e., that the country can run on a much smaller workforce and thus a much smaller budget? Dr. Orlando.
Okay, this one I want to go first on. Yes, that is exactly what they're doing, and they don't care how many people die as a result of it, as long as as Trump and his buddies can sit back and laugh at all the poor people suffering. They don't really care. That's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, I believe that our former governor, when he cut lots of programs, when he basically removed taxes in the state of Kansas, I believe that part of it was by design. He wanted a smaller government. He wanted those services gone. And this is kind of a right-wing, really wet dream, what's happening right now. Cutting programs, cutting stamps, food stamps, cutting regulations, cutting climate regulations. Agencies that test food and water are not
It's
functioning.
as if they're looking at stuff like, I don't know, the Hunger Games, the
Districts.
Yeah.
and they want more and
That's a
more poor
great
people.
documentary. I love
Oh,
it.
yeah. And with a few really rich people running it, because the ones in charge of this see themselves as the really privileged few, and that's what they want to get into. I mean, it's just sickening.
No, I think that is exactly what's going on. God damn it, Conroy! I was so happy to see you, and you ruined it with all that noise in the background.
Yeah.
Couldn't have waited 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
He
So,
blamed our producer. He blamed Eric.
Yeah. So they're cutting programs. They're cutting back on everything. It's the government's paralyzed. The national parks are closed. They're marketing this as if you watch Fox News, you get the feeling that they've just closed the gift shop at the national parks. They're not talking about the TSA. They're not talking about flight controllers and all of these services, Coast Guard, and all that stuff. They're talking about small stuff, the national parks and food stamps, which is not a small thing, but it's pretty sickening what's happening and the indifference. And to tell you the truth, when you talk about there's a lot of forces in this country that don't want a government at all. I mean, the Koch brothers are against government, period. But I know countries with no government. Somalia, throughout the 90s and part of the 2000s, for 16 years, Somalia didn't have a government. Look what happened there. It was hell on earth. Libya didn't have a government for a year and a half. Hell on earth. There's many examples of this happening outside of that country. What was the Libertatia? Have you heard of Libertatia? Have you heard of, we call it Libertalia in Bulgaria. It's a country that was created by pirates on the coast of Madagascar. Have you heard of that?
Right.
That had no government whatsoever, and it was like heaven on earth. but that's somewhat mythical. People.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Well, pirates had this actually pretty egalitarian
Democracy.
democracy.
Yeah.
No, they really did.
They did.
Yeah. At least the like
Including
American
for women
Atlantic
and
Coast.
everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
If you wanted to
sure.
be a
Right.
captain,
They
and
voted.
were a woman, you became a pirate.
They voted, and half of the populace was black and half white, and they lived in harmony in that country because the crew of the pirate ships were half black, half. They had no problem. So they were hundreds of years ago. They were racially integrated. They lived in peace. Their flag was actually white, not the
the
regular
Jolly Roger, yeah.
Jolly Roger flag.
Right.
And who knows how I've heard it existed for like 30 or 40 years or something. But
I have no idea how long.
Yeah.
How long it was there?
interesting. But yeah, countries with no government is a disaster. And part of the reason this country is so great is the government and the regulations. Part of the reason people want to come here is they run from disorder. They don't like the social entropy that's happening in their countries. They come here because they want order.
Yeah, but you realize like there's this entire group of people. They're called Fox News listeners that would balk, like they would do a spit take to hear you say the government is what makes this country great. Like that is it's a given that's the problem with America.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think you're right. There's this large group of people that would rather see it all burn.
How in the world do they expect to be a democracy, which they all think is wonderful, without a government?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Okay.
Government.
I guess the key is their think.
There are parts of the country
Yeah.
that are unincorporated, right? I've seen a lot of like little towns and stuff that are unincorporated. They don't have a government. They still have to obey federal government and laws, but they themselves don't have a government, and they're usually shitholes. They usually want to get incorporated. They want to become towns and have,
I always think it's hilarious when places like Mexico say, "Oh, we want to be independent," and they go, "Oh, okay, cool." One day some president will go, "Okay, you're done, goodbye,"
Yeah.
and then the Mexicans say, "Hey, that Texas place. Sorry, I meant Texas. If I didn't
Yeah,
say
Texas.
that Texas place, didn't that used to be ours?
Yeah.
Well, we've got a modern army and everything, and they're not doing very much at the moment. Let's go and get it back, shall we?" And the first thing the governor of Texas is going to go is, "Mr. President, we have a little problem on one of our borders,
Yeah.
but we just made you independent. You need to sort it out yourself." What I find fascinating about these sort of conversations is it's all ethereal. It's not real. People don't actually come up with real answers to the thing. It's just we don't really like it, That's why Brexit went through, because we want to keep the pound. They didn't really like the idea of euros. And I wonder how much of this wall thing is because we don't really like the idea of saying, no, people can't come into our country. They made me pay, I don't know how much money to bring my family to America. It was
This was not the
Certainly-
Coyotes.
Well,
This
but
was
certainly
legal
more-
They
immigration.
got
Yeah.
to know you, though. I mean,
certainly more than $1. And
The mistake
And
was
lots
letting
of-
them meet him.
yes.
and lots of police checks. I think I personally went through 3
Health checks.
health checks.
Why?
With
They don't pay for our health. Is
yeah,
that crazy?
X-rays. And
Cracks me
my what was he then? 8-year-old, 9-year-old, something-year-old son had to go through all. You had to have police checks.
Yeah.
And we had to show that we had enough money not to be a drain on the American purse, which is okay. I'd have
Give
preferred not to
anything,
have to,
it's funny.
but that was the rules.
Yeah.
Right? And that was the rules. So if people find themselves coming up from Honduras because life is unbearable there, right? I don't have a problem with them coming up and them applying to join the country legally. I don't have a problem.
You got to remember,
But
they
where
haven't
I-
got the
but
thousands
where
of dollars it costs.
I'm saying I don't have a problem with them doing it legally, but if I'm the person saying that, I also have to come up with how do they do it legally, right? And for them to do it legally, it means the American government, whoever they happen to be at the time, have to want to play with that. They have to say, okay, we'll support that, which comes back to you get 1,000 people turn up one day. Where do those 1,000 people live? Who looks after them? Who feeds them? Who looks after their medical needs? All that sort of stuff. That's where I'm going. Who's going to do that? Because it won't be the churches. Let me tell you, they're not going to do it. So it comes back to the American taxpayer. So
Yes, but without a wall, illegal immigration, has been going down for years now.
I think
There are ways to address this that work other than stupid walls.
Yeah, cut like 1% on the military budget. Maybe you can feed like every people for life.
Yeah.
All right, here's another one for you.
Bring it on.
Ready?
Yeah.
We have the best military in the world.
Yeah.
Now, the Russians and the Brits and the Japanese and Chinese and various other countries, including the Foreign Legion, would disagree with that. But, hoorah, the Americans say they have the best military in the world. Hoorah. Yes, true? Hoorah.
Yeah.
So, I tell you what, Venezuela's got a bit of a problem right now, okay? You want to know a real national emergency is when we go into Venezuela. We won't go in yet, but we're going in maybe 6 or 9 months, then we won't have to do the election. But hey, how about going down to Mexico and helping sort out their drug cartel problem, our military? How about going a bit further down to Honduras and doing the same thing?
Just invading country after
Yeah,
country.
let's just go and invade a few countries.
This is
Imperialism.
counter to the whole point
Yeah.
of the
No, it's
conversation.
imperialism, you
It's a
bloody
British
idiot.
imperialism.
It's British imperialism. It's how you deal with foreigners.
The British can show the United States a
Yes.
thing or two about imperialism.
Yes,
Is that
we've
what you're
done
trying
it
to
before.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, Washington
done it.
only
Sorry, I'm
won.
lost.
Let
I
me
am
tell
too.
you, Washington only won because he invaded when our army had hired the Germans to look after the thing, right?
It's the
And
Germans.
it was Christmas, and all the armies had gone home for Christmas. And if you don't believe me, for the people who are laughing and say the idiot Brit, look up your history.
That was one.
No, 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 we're not
Armies in
laughing
those
at you
days,
because we
armies
don't
in those
believe
days
you.
didn't fight
We just
in
don't
the snow.
care. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right, so that's Washington, right? What happened when the Brits left? You guys went and did a deal
Jeremy,
with the French.
stop ranting. Lordy.
Always blame the
This
French.
is crazy.
Where did this conversation come from? We were
Deep
talking
within
about the wall.
him. Yes.
But what I want to know from each of you, right? Okay, so there's 6 people on the panel. Conroy, be quiet. We're trying to record here, for goodness sake.
It's
right,
Neil's.
shush.
It's Neil's fault.
So for the 6
Damn it,
people,
Neil.
yes, come back and engineer or whatever you're doing. So the 6 people round the table, right? I want to go round the table.
Yes.
When does... I think somebody just died. When... Sorry, I've got to try to keep it together now. So, when's the government shutdown going to finish? What is going to make it finish?
Democrats are going to cave.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what is it going to be? An incident or a happening?
Just time.
No, Trump is going to cave on something so that he gets to have his speech.
Oh, the State of the Union address.
Yeah, he really wants to get up there and have
That's what
people
Tony Schwartz
all
said.
around him standing and
So
applauding.
Kathleen says the government will be reopened for the State of the Union.
Well, that's possible.
That's January 28th.
Okay.
It'll probably be after that.
I
But
would
he
agree
would
that's
not
gonna
put
be
it
after
off
that.
for much longer than that because he wants to be there.
Can't he just rent a big place in one of his hotels?
Big and
Rent it
great.
from
Great.
himself.
He wouldn't
Rent
have
from himself
any,
and do it
He
there.
would have less than half of the people in the government.
He doesn't
attending.
care as long
he
as
wants
Fox
a
is
big
broadcasting.
audience.
Okay, we're going to go into Eric, the producer, who produces lots of different people. I'd like to see what your opinion is, Mr. Eric.
I think we're discounting the exponential power of media. and when all of the headlines are about these out-of-work people standing in food circles and food lines, someone's going to cave in an instant. So I think this is going to happen sooner or later. If not, by the time we've already put this out here, I think the media is going to push this.
When he sees too many polls saying his personal popularity, see, people have no effect on Trump. His personal popularity going down would affect him.
Dr.
Media,
Orlando,
polls,
when do you
whatever.
think the government's going to go? What's going to cause the government to go back?
I am firmly behind what our producer just said. It is going to be that someone caves based on the reports of people literally dying because they're out of work and can't afford food and basic medical care. And I don't think it's going to be Trump because I don't think he cares.
Yeah.
I think that, and I think I said it last week, Trump's popularity never dips below a certain level.
Yes.
He has a certain diehard number. If you see Trump's numbers at maybe 25%, maybe then he would care. But outside of that, he's not going to give up on this.
Just look at it this way. The average IQ is 100.
Sure.
Meaning that half the country is below that.
Uh-huh.
The bottom 30% of the IQ range is going to support Trump,
Yes.
no matter what.
Yes.
Right? So there you are.
Right.
So everybody with an IQ of 85 or lower
Yeah.
vote for him forever.
I saw a disturbing poll the other day that only 1% of Republicans think that the shutdown is Trump's fault. 1%.
Right.
That
yeah, but
is
there's
shocking.
fewer Republicans than there used to be.
Yes.
They
So,
are
Evo,
leaving the party.
What do you think will bring it to a head and the government goes back?
I 100% agree with Lewis. I think the Democrats will cave in because they actually are in possession of something called empathy, and they will not be able to stand emotionally and morally the reality of people starving and being unable to pay for the medical bills, for their children's medical bills. So I think the people that will cave in will actually be the Democrats, and they will agree on something very, very small, like a small deal, like the 3 years that were offered to the DACA recipients, and they'll give him what he wants because they will just not be able to sustain this
And then
emotionally.
3 months later, and they know this for a fact, he will do the same thing again,
Again,
for another.
yeah.
For this time, it'll be 10 billion,
Yeah.
and then the 3 months after that, it'll be 15 billion.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree with Evo on what he's saying, and Dr. Orlando as well. With the oh god,
Caveat?
yeah, there's. Hold on, I gotta get my thoughts together. Fernando, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, like.
Who's going to cave?
What's
Yeah,
gonna
I
make-
think possibly
what-
the Democrats, but I mean, I really, it's a shit show. You never know. Could be something totally upside down. You know, maybe we could have even a terrorism attack that would be for lack of security somewhere. Could it be a U.S. What's the USDA that control food and
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah, yeah.
Like let's say some,
Food poisoning all across the
and then that gonna affect every like hamburger on Burger King and McDonald's at the
Hamburger.
same time and hamburger.
Ooh, if
Hamburger.
McDonald's had to
And
shut
Wendy's.
down, then the
The
country
three
would just
chains at the same
turn
time.
on-
It would be the
on
end of the
Trump in a
war.
minute.
I'm going to come back to Coach quickly.
Yeah, no. So about who's going to cave first, from a Democrat point of view, what Evo was saying about empathy, we don't want to see these people suffer. We don't want to see these people be out of work, not being able to support their families. And I think from what we were talking about earlier, just with the whole, like, this was a test to see if we could run, the whole thing with less workers. At some point, Trump's got to know the end game of what's going to happen with it. As in, he knows the Democrats care more than him. He knows that this is going to be the outcome. They're going to cave because they're tired of seeing people out of work, out of money, and, dying on the streets. I feel like he knows that in a way.
I think you guys are underestimating Nancy Pelosi. She's a woman of steel. And I think you guys don't realize just how ruthless women can be sometimes.
Yeah.
we know.
There's
When
only,
they know that it's the right thing to do.
There's one massive difference between her and Trump. She actually has a heart.
Yeah.
And it's all game theory. It's the Nash principle. You have points of pressure. You have leverage. You have two players, one goal, and one of the players is not really a player. It's a brick. It's a dumb ass brick with no.
Senate is eventually going to turn on McConnell, and they will pass something.
McConnell
to
can
open
end
the
this
open.
now.
Sure.
You don't think
it's Mitch McConnell. It's not
Yeah,
the Trump.
he could.
You don't think that this situation will turn into essential triage prior to that? Meaning that the Democrats will feel the need to do something because people are literally dying?
If people start dying, the country is going to want to blame somebody, and they're going to more and more start blaming Mitch McConnell and the Senate, who are refusing to pass anything to help open the government.
You really think the country is that sophisticated? Like, to me,
they're learning.
it is. My perception
we
is.
forget, I think, to interrupt, sorry, that most of the country, and I bet it's 85%, have no idea who Pelosi is. That's the point.
I don't know that it goes that far. I think that it is either Trump or the Democrats. I think that is as simple as the equation
I don't know.
becomes.
Today, there were representatives of the federal workers' unions going to see Mitch McConnell, and he had them arrested. Okay? This thing is going to get out there that the federal employees were asking Mitch McConnell just to talk to them, and he had them arrested. That is not going to look good.
Yeah.
Nobody really likes Mitch McConnell anyway. I suspect that nobody in his family likes him.
I like
So-
his voice.
Yeah. He's
So,
got
I think you got to remember that he's pivotal.
a beautiful ass.
He owns a dog.
Ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, we just decided we would keep it short because we got a political ad tonight. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I'm going to ask Ivo, because Ivo hasn't done this for a little bit, who our sponsors were tonight, because we want to thank our sponsors. We haven't done this enough.
Obviously, I wasn't prepared, and I didn't really have our sponsors list with me. But surprisingly, I didn't think it's possible for us to be sponsored by an inanimate object. But I just received a call from no other than the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall is sponsoring our podcast tonight with existential dread, whistling bullets, and 1 million Eastern Deutschmarks. Enjoy.
We want to thank our producers and engineer, of course, engineer Neil Rasmussen, of course, Eric, the producer. The team tonight was Dr. Orlando, Dame Kathleen, Fernando, the technical wizard, Coach Tyler, Eric, the producer, and of course Count Evo. My name's Jeremy Taylor. Thank you for listening.